Next up, we have Aurorus. This adorable ice dinosaur, almost like a mystical version of something out of the Land Before Time, was first introduced as one of the most colorful additions of X and Y. It is one of its generation's fossil Pokemon, rewarding hardworking trainers by evolving it from its similarly adorable pre-evolution, Amaura, at a tough but fair level 39. Aurorus is generally a distinct one-of-a-kind Pokemon. Its typing is as unique as the Aurora Borealis it's based on is rare. Today, we'll see if the uniqueness was able to translate to success in the challenging world of the competitive scene. And so, we ask, how good was Aurorus actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Aurorus had a lot to like in its debut generation. Its unique typing gave it two complementary stab moves, being able to threaten the fire and ice types that would resist its ice moves with its rock stab, and vice versa against the ground types that would resist its rock stab. It also had valuable coverage and earth power, letting it slam the steel types that would resist both its stabs. Additionally, it had a solid special attack stat with which to fire out these moves from. But what really turned it from decent to genuinely dangerous was its choice between two similarly excellent facilitatory offensive abilities. It could either use Snow Warning, whose hail summoning effect allowed it to run a perfectly accurate blizzard as its ice stab, and all its attacks were effectively stronger as a whole, since most Pokemon switching in would take an extra 6.25% from the hail. In fact, just switching in and activating Snow Warning let Aurorus spread damage on opposing Pokemon in all sorts of scenarios, including those where it didn't attack or wasn't even on the field. Alternatively, it could use Refrigerate as its ability. It lost a slight boost to its non-ice stab, as it would no longer have hail chipping the opposing team, but it also wouldn't have hail digging into its teammates, which was key. And just as importantly, Refrigerate turned Hyper Voice into a powerful ice move, which was even stronger than Blizzard. Aurorus had some other useful traits in addition to this wealth of offensive potential. It had an enormous HP stat in addition to decent defenses, and could even support its team with Stealth Rock. However, like most ice types, Aurorus was heavily flawed. Ice is one of the most threatening offensive typings in the game, but it's also the worst defensive one, rife with weaknesses, and only resisting itself. Aurorus' half rock typing helped partially, sure, as it made Aurorus neutral to fire and provided it with resistances to normal and flying. However, it hurt at least in equal measure and probably more. Not only did Aurorus not have any good special rock stab, since for some reason it didn't get Power Gem and had to settle for the far weaker Ancient Power. Its rock typing also added weaknesses to water, ground, and grass, as well as compounding its existing weaknesses to fighting and steel. Now, an offensively threatening Pokemon can get away with being weak to a lot, and to use another ice type example, I mean, look at Weavile. However, the reason Weavile gets away with it is because it's really fast, meaning that while most Pokemon can KO it, it threatens to outspeed and KO them first. With its thoroughly terrible base 58 speed, Aurorus was on the opposite end of that spectrum against other offensive Pokemon. On the bright side, it both outsped and could take weaker hits from defensive Pokemon, and it could potentially even fix its low speed and go for a late game sweep with Rock Polish. So how did all these traits come together for Aurorus? Well, it certainly wasn't going to crack it in the fast, power, and bulk-laden OU and UU metagames. It showed some potential in RU, but even that proved to be a difficult tier for Aurorus to really leave its mark on, with bulky waters and steels abound. It was too difficult for Aurorus to reliably threaten even slow defensive teams. Plus, Protect was abundant, making it difficult for Aurorus to be able to consistently find opportunities to go for the already shaky option of predicting water switch-ins with Freeze Dry, or Registeel switch-ins with Earth Power. Additionally, even if it connected with its target, it wasn't strong enough to threaten a KO. And these targets all had methods to heal themselves reliably, such as healing moves, Regenerator, and even Protect, since hail wasn't permanent. Sometimes even combinations of these. It couldn't repeatedly threaten to break these teams down over the course of an extended battle either, as its Stealth Rock weakness put it on a fast ticking timer. Finally, the presence of a Scavalier and Bronzong made it really difficult for Aurorus to do anything, as both were steel types not weak to Earth Power. And its Scavalier's Overcoat ability meant it ignored hail's chip damage. Aurorus couldn't even circumvent this by fitting HP Fire into its moveset, and it was generally difficult to do so, and was usually wasteful in battle. Aurorus couldn't threaten a Rock Polish sweep against offense either, since it had too many weaknesses to set up anywhere safely, and was forced to run a timid nature to outrun Scarfers at +2 speed, significantly cutting into its power. Plus, it was easily revenge killed by Girder and Hitmonlee's Mach Punch. The one thing Aurorus could do that drove its slight niche in the tier was act as a solid offensive defensive stealth rock setter. Thanks to its ice stab, the popular defog Flygon wouldn't want to come anywhere near it, while Golbat was similarly threatened, Rapid Spin Blastoise was threatened by Freeze Dry, and Magic Bounce Xatu couldn't prevent its setup without risking a KO. This was a decent niche, since reliably setting up rocks and potentially even hail went a long way in setting the foundation and starting the process of breaking down the metagame's immensely popular balance teams. However, Aurorus' complete lack of defensive utility meant it was massively difficult to fit on a team reliably, and thus it remained rare. If one really wanted hail, Abomasnow generally had more to offer on both offense and defense, and one could slot Stealth Rock on a number of great Pokemon. Aurorus' capacity to compress both roles into one Pokemon was incredibly specific. Nevertheless, though it was niche, at least it had one. With Aurorus' limited viability in RU, it fell further, landing in NU, and there it really got a chance to shine. The metagame was slower, weaker, more fragile, and had much less in the way of longevity. What this meant in practical terms was that Aurorus found its way on the field more easily, and when it fired an attack off, it would do a lot of damage. Damage that would stick. Sure, Aurorus had some good checks, but even the best of those checks, such as Assault Vest Hariyama and Eviolite Thick Fat Piloswine, lacked any sort of recovery, and still took decent chunks from Aurorus' moves. With good hazard control options such as Magic Bounce Xatu, Defog Skuntank, and Rapid Spin Kabutops, Aurorus had plenty of good partners that could help assuage its Stealth Rock weakness, letting it come in and batter the opposition repeatedly, especially with help from U-turning and Volt Switching teammates that let it hit the field without risking damage, safely putting it in position to tear through several of the tier's best, most popular defensive Pokemon such as Vileplume, Rhydon, and Steelix, with several other common defensive Pokemon like Lantern, Ferroseed, and Mega Audino not being able to switch in at all reliably. With its Choice Spec set establishing itself as one of the metagame's most powerful wall breakers, Aurorus didn't need much more depth to its game, but it was better off for having it, since it could also opt to run the Stealth Rock set from RU to solid effect, since Xatu wanted no part of it at all. So overall, Aurorus' debut generation was tumultuous at first, but it eventually found its place, significantly helping shape the NU metagame. Sun and Moon's power creep in conjunction with Aurorus' innate flaws meant it wasn't going to be breaking into the higher tiers anytime soon, but that was just fine, as it was primed to make a splash in the lower tiers again. Generation 7 added two incredible forms of hail abuse: Aurora Veil, which could only be used under hail, but was effectively light screen and reflect in one move, meaning equal duration for both and requiring only one turn of setup, and the speed doubling Slush Rush. Both were wielded by the excellent Alolan Sandslash. Of course, A-Slash couldn't set up hail itself without spending a turn on doing so manually, which would be difficult to pull off. However, it didn't need to, as it could just pair with Aurorus, who could lead off and guarantee the hail would be set up before turn 1 even took place, meaning A-Slash would have its speed doubled as soon as it hit the field. Aurorus was particularly excellent in this facilitatory supporting capacity, since it could set the stage for its teammates even further by getting Stealth Rock up, which it could do reliably thanks to Focus Sash, letting it take any hit while its Blizzard mortally threatened any rock blocking attempts from Xatu. With Blizzard, Freeze Dry, and Hail Chip finishing off Focus Sash or sturdy Pokemon, Aurorus was also able to threaten other common early game Stealth Rock Pokemon like Steelix, Rhydon, Amistar, and Archeops. One couldn't even try to punish Aurorus' team by setting up on it, as it would lock out any attempts to do so with another excellent support move, Encore. But wait, you might wonder, how was this worth just to set up Alolan Sandslash? Sure, it was a good offensive Pokemon, but there was no way it could reliably set up Aurora Veil and Swords Dance and have enough hail turns to outspeed and KO enough of the opposing team, even if Aurorus compromised its general effectiveness by opting for the hail extending Icy Rock as its item. You would be correct in wondering this, but the idea was not to set up Alolan Sandslash as a sweeper. It was to set up A-Slash's ability to set up its teammates. A-Slash was an instantly threatening Pokemon under hail, but it didn't even bother with Swords Dance, as its main purpose was to set up Aurora Veil, which was extended to game-breaking durations by Light Clay. It also had the excellent benefit of rapid spinning away annoying opposing hazards, if needed. Aurorus and A-Slash were a 1-2 setup combination to facilitate their teammates. Now, it would also be entirely fair to wonder, is it really worth dedicating two Pokemon slots who are probably going to faint very quickly after setting up their conditions just to facilitate those teammates? The answer was a resounding yes. It wasn't just the power of those conditions, it was the power of those conditions in conjunction with the insanely threatening sweepers they were facilitating. Sweepers which packed both natural power and some of the best boosting moves in the game. The Shell Smash duo of Turtonator and Barberco was was terrifying enough, but it didn't end there. There was also the terrifying Quiver Dance Vivillon. Any of these Pokemon could end the game on their own, and in conjunction with each other, they possessed a collective amount of offense that was impossible to withstand. All they needed was an opportunity to set up. That's where Aurora Veil came in. Not only did it make it easy for them to grab that all-important setup turn, it also made them more difficult to revenge kill for the few Pokemon that could take boosted hits from them, making them even more threatening. As such, it was entirely worth it and even commonplace to throw away both Aurorus and Alolan Sandslash in the opening turns of the game, just to create a situation for these Pokemon to set up. Even though it was incredibly predictable, the playstyle was so powerful that it didn't even matter. It dominated so hard that it didn't take too long for Aurora Veil to be banned. It was still early in the generation as Ultra Sun and Moon hadn't even come out yet, and Aurorus had already had quite an impact. There were several other potential Aurora Veil users, but it was easily the best facilitator of them. As a result of the ban, Hail's facilitation of offense shifted more to Vanillix's powerful blizzards, Alolan Sandslash using Slush Rush to actually try and sweep, or a combination of both. Aurorus was no longer the automatic addition to such teams as it had been before, as the playstyle needed to stick around as opposed to just leading off and fainting. However, it was still a legitimate piece of such teams. In addition to its ever-reliable stealth rocking in the face of Xatu, it could pair with Vanillix to ensure that Hail was almost always active, especially since it could now afford to run Icy Rock, making Alolan Sandslash as threatening as possible. It could also potentially eschew Stealth Rock in favor of its own choice spec set, which was just as threatening as in the previous generation, and maximize the offense dished out while still providing its all-important Hail support. Then eventually the playstyle disappeared with Vanillix's ban, and Aurorus alone wasn't enough to facilitate Alolan Sandslash as a sweeper, leading them both to tumble to PU. However, unlike A-Slash, Aurorus retained a decent niche in NU that was nearly identical to that of its role in the previous generation's RU, except more effective. It was specific, but the ability to compress both an effective offensive stealth rocker with wall chipping Hail support was a solid niche. In PU, Aurorus was absolutely excellent as a standalone Pokemon, proving itself as one of the metagame's most popular effective choices. Its choice spec set was one of the metagame's most powerful defining wall breakers, tearing through most of the metagame with little effort. Its blizzards tore through pretty much everything that didn't resist them, and it had all the coverage it needed to crush the few Pokemon that did. Aurorus found a new aspect of its game in PU too. It ran a Choice Scarf set to great effect, turning the tables on offensive Pokemon like Dodrio that expected to outrun and KO it. The surprise factor sure helped, but Scarf was great even when the opponent knew the set, thanks to the innate value of such a fast blizzard. This ability to function so well on its own not only helped Aurorus fit into a large variety of different teams, but also made it better at using its Hail to facilitate Alolan Sandslash on the occasions they did team up, as it wasn't like you were using a bad Pokemon because it set up another. You were using a great Pokemon that set up another great Pokemon. The combination was helped out even further by A-Slash being one of the tier's standalone Pokemon as well. It was really more of a thorough, well-rounded enhancement to an already great Pokemon, since in addition to Hail, A-Slash was also great at cleaning up the remaining pieces of an opposing team ravaged by Aurorus's powerful attacks. So overall, Aurorus was an outstanding PU Pokemon with whichever set it chose, and saw plenty of usage and success as a result. And the 7th generation was a massive success for Aurorus as a whole. Aurorus was not very good early on in Generation 8. It was glanced at, but didn't do anything particularly noteworthy, and was mostly passed over as it existed without much purpose in RU. But everything changed when the Crown Tundra attacked, and Aurorus dropped to PU, while maintaining usage and purpose in NU. Both teams came to be defined by Hail and its facilitation of Slush Rush sweepers. Vanillix was gone, and Aurorus had to compete with Abomasnow, but one didn't outclass the other. They simply fit on different types of teams. Aurorus saw plenty of usage and success even after Vanillix returned. Like the other Snow Warning Pokemon, Aurorus had also gained Aurora Veil itself in Generation 8, allowing it to support its team even further. Though its competition was fierce, Aurorus distinguished itself with its unique, invaluable ability to set up Stealth Rock, and its partial rock typing was incredibly useful on a team style that needed all the defensive help it could get. As such, the slush rushing duo of Arctovish and Alolan Sandslash, the latter now in a sweeping role as opposed to setting up Aurora Veil, was immensely grateful to have Aurora supporting them. In addition to this improved defensive integrity backing them up, they were also beneficiaries of a Pokemon that got up Hail and Rocks quickly, as opposed to having to spread that task over 2 Pokemon and thus more turns, which would mean more turns that the Slush Rushers weren't on the field, ripping through everything in sight. The style became even more devastating with the return of Arctozolt, and as if all that wasn't enough, Aurora Veil served to push these already insane Pokemon further over the edge, making them difficult to KO even if the opponent managed the difficult task of withstanding their hits. Hail was absolutely dominant, largely thanks to the ease and team building Aurorus created through its ability to set up rocks. The style was the subject of a swirling maelstrom of tiering action aimed at dealing with the negative consequences it foisted upon its tiers. First in NU, Aurora Veil was banned, then Arctozalt was banned, and it seemed that Arctovish was going to be banned next. But at this point, the player base realized that maybe, just maybe, Hail itself was the overbearing factor. As such, Snow Warning was banned from NU, which removed it from PU as well. In light of this ban, both Arctozalt and Aurora Veil were unbanned. Well, that was chaotic, you might be thinking. But as it turns out, Arctozalt had been ripping things up in OU and UU. It seemed like it was just a matter of time before it moved out of the tier by usage. But bam, it was outright banned from UU instead. Additionally, RU banned Light Clay, which by extension banned the item from NU and PU as well. So without the monstrous sweeper Arctozalt and the insanity of the Aurora Veil extended Light Clay, the NU player base decided that unbanning Snow Warning would probably be fine, as long as they also banned Arctovish while doing so, which they did, and also removed the Pokemon from PU. As a result, Snow Warning returned to both NU and PU without Arctozalt and Arctovish, and with Aurora Veil unable to be extended by Light Clay. This brings us to present day, in which Aurorus in both NU and PU contently continues to support Alolan Sandslash, as well as a new Slush Rusher, none other than the mighty Beartic, whose brutally powerful Swords Dance and Choice Band sets allow it to proudly carry the mantle of Hail Sweeper. Aurorus can run either Focus Sash to guarantee it gets rocks up, or Icy Rock to extend Hail turns. Funnily enough, despite Hail being a defensive, powerful strategy in both tiers, Aurorus' usage is actually low enough that it is considered untiered. However, this is a rare case of being misrepresented by its tiering status. The other Hail setters, Vanillix and Abomasnow, are similarly misrepresented. There is another famous example of this happening. In Generation 5, Rotom Frost is one of NU's most definitive powerful Pokemon, yet it is somehow untiered. It's gotta be an Ice-type phenomenon. They're just too cool for the system. Anyway, Aurorus has been at the center of chaos in this generation, but it's stayed chilling in the lower tiers, ensuring that there's plenty of Hail for the Slush Rushers to play in. And that's it. So how good was Aurorus actually? Well, it has had a thoroughly individual competitive history, which is fitting for its unique typing and rare ability. It's been an NU star for the 3 generations it's existed in, and has been excellent in PU twice. It's quite a flawed Pokemon overall, but it managed to leave a significant mark whenever it's found its place. And who knows, maybe one day Aurorus will gain an evolution itself, and will bring its unique brand of power to the higher tiers. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Aurorus? How would you buff it besides an evolution so that it exists in higher tiers? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.